Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dev Chat number 10 for Puzzling Places. Today is a special day because we have a very special guest. The co-founder of Gerfo 3D, Philippe Graindorge, is here to join us to talk about the latest DLC that we worked on, that we collaborated together for, called the French Chateaus. This has been a long time in the making, and also Philippe has been a very early collaborator with us with the Mont Saint-Michel puzzle, which is one of the fan favorites for Puzzling Places. So it brings me great honor and pleasure to introduce you to Philippe, who is one of the brains behind all these beautiful scans from France. Hello, Philippe.
Hi, Azad. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. My pleasure.
Yeah, it's really excited about this pack. We really have talked about this for maybe around 2 to 3 years now, about like doing a France focused Chateau pack. And so finally the time was right. And just to also give a little bit of context about the timing, just this month of October, I know we're recording now at the end of September here, but in October, the new Quest 3 is launching, which has some fantastic new features. And we also have just released a massive new update for Puzzling Places, which includes multiplayer, and it also includes hand tracking, so you can now play the game with just your hands. But also it has local mixed reality multiplayer, which means if you have two quests in the same room, you can both wear your headsets and you can puzzle a nice big 3D puzzle together. And so what better way to celebrate that than to have these beautiful, massive French chateaus, which now on Quest can go, and Quest and PlayStation VR can go up to 1,000 puzzle pieces. So that's like a big achievement also for us. So I think this is a
sounds very exciting to us too. Yeah.
Yes. So Philippe, let's start with a little bit of background about yourself. How did you find yourself in this world of 3D scanning, of photogrammetry, and of flying planes to 3D scan?
Well, actually, I was an engineer. I was working in laser and fiber optics, and I was trained as a scientist. And at one time, there was a problem with the internet bubble. You might recall that. That was in the years 2000. And at that time, I decided to change. I started to learn piloting. I got my professional license, pilot license, and started the Gerfo company at that time to make aerial photography. So at the beginning, it was just aerial photography, plain aerial photography. There was nothing else anyway.
There were no drones at the time either, so.
No, there were no drones and there was no photogrammetry. And that's how it happened. In 2012, I think, I discovered this small French company. It was called Acute 3D. And they had developed this fantastic, at that time it was really fantastic, software called Small 3D Capture. It was really the first photogrammetry software, and I thought it was really brilliant. Those were mathematicians, and they were really, really smart. And they were located in France. That was really a piece of luck for me, because I called them and said, how can we work together? And that's how it started. So I had the 1.0 software, which was, it was nice, but a bit rough.
Right.
There was not that many features, and it was not, well, some things, most of it were working well, but not that much. And at the same time, Sketchfab was starting for about the same reason. 3D models were appearing, and how do you share 3D models? There was nothing at that time.
Right.
And Sketchfab decided to be the YouTube for 3D models.
Right. Also a French company.
Also a French company, and the boss is a French. Well, no, the whole thing were now they're in New York.
Yeah.
But at that time they were still in France, and so I called them, and I started to post my very first models, 3D models on Sketchfab. It was a great time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it still is. Sketchfab is also, I believe, how we found how we connected with you. Like, I believe that's how we discovered a few of your models, including Mont Saint Michel, and we're like, wow, like the quality of these models are fantastic. The subjects are amazing. We should try to find a way to get in touch. So we did, and that's also how we've met quite a lot of other photogrammetry companies and content creators. Just because when people 3D scan places, unless there's somewhere to post, those scans don't really go anywhere. It's maybe sometimes they record a video or post screenshots, but you do need a native 3D, let's say YouTube, and Sketchfab has really filled in that role. So yeah, we love it as well. In terms of photogrammetry, maybe you can give a little bit of context also around this time of like the early to mid 2000s, late 2000s. Photogrammetry, from what I understand, is an older mathematical, like cartography, a way to make maps, basically, or cartography.
Yeah. That's right.
There were manual ways of doing it before the advent of like digital photogrammetry and with computer vision. Were you involved in that at all, or did it kind of all come together for you when you realized, oh, like we can just take pictures, put them into a software, and have 3D models get generated from there?
I was aware of the traditional photogrammetry, but those were mainly, how can I say that? It was vertical photos,
Right?
And that's how people made maps, and they paired them 2 by 2, and in the old days, you had people with sort of binoculars looking at the maps and checking points by hand. And then it evolved into a software, but it was still vertical photos.
Right.
And I think the really smart thing that happened at that time is that it could be used with oblique photos, and you could map many points on many photos, and that wasn't the case before that. And I think that's what was really interesting in this new software, is to use oblique photos, which was not possible at all in the past.
Yeah, and as a result, you get 3D models that have really detailed, side structures, especially let's say for the chateaus. You don't want to just look at them from top down, but you want to look at them from an oblique or exactly from the side angle. So yeah, that's I can see how shooting out of a plane from the side or from below, like, really helps capture perspectives that you wouldn't be able to get from, I believe they were using blimps back in the day, or hot air balloons when they're flying over land masses.
Yeah, one time. No, but yeah, that's right. In modern times, it wasn't blimps anymore. It was just planes with a hatch in the fuselage, and then you could shoot through it with a camera. There was another thing that wasn't obvious, is how do you reference your photo, because you couldn't add control points. So you have to have a very accurate camera, know precisely where you are, how you're shooting. All this was over. Now I shoot with a Nikon camera. It's a professional camera, but it's nothing special. I use a D850, which is one of the good ones, but I mean, it's not made for aerial photography at all. And the software enables you to it takes care of all the everything. It even corrects for the
distortion.
imperfection, the distortion of the lens and everything. So it's really wonderful. It's a big change from what it was done before. Yeah.
So with flying and plane photogrammetry, you mentioned, like, back in the day, and I think still today, they have camera structures that are built into the plane, perhaps like through a hatch. How, when you were getting started into this, like, what was your method of doing photogrammetry from a plane? Did you have to like build a rig like that into a plane that you were already flying, or find a better way, a simpler solution here?
Well, when I started, I was a pilot and I was doing aerial photography. It sounds a bit strange, but a plane flies on its own.
Right.
So you just let the plane fly, open the window, shoot from the side with your camera, and you shoot what you want, and then you get the plane back and go on flying. And I was alone in my plane. I was flying the plane and shooting at the same time.
Right.
That was possible when I was making a few photos. Now, when you make photogrammetry, you have to shoot hundreds, thousands of photos, and it's not possible anymore to shoot and pilot at the same time. But at the beginning, I was doing that, and I did that for quite a moment. One of the chateaus, Hautefort, was one of the first ones I did. I was living in Dordogne at that time, and it was really one of the very first I did, and I was on my own at that time.
Wow.
So it's possible, you have those planes with the wings above the plane, and you can open the windows just like that.
Right. I think
It's really it's strange. For us in France, it sounds like a deux chevaux. I don't know if that talks to anybody. It's a car. It's a very old car,
yeah.
And it has windows that open upwards, and it's really those planes are really like this funny car.
It's funny you mention it because we actually have a puzzle of that car. So this is Citroën 2CV in English, at least.
That's right.
We have, I'll have to find the specific image of the puzzle, but it's a scan of a 2CV that I did in Berlin, and it has these different colored body panels, like a red and a green, and it looks like a toy, basically, at least with that color scheme, and it's quite cute. So
it is, yeah. It is. In fact, as an aerial photographer, I had to, I had no there is no training to be an aerial photographer. You just have to work and manage your process by yourself. And one of the things I did learn, when you fly a drone, it's like, 50 feet above the ground? When you fly a plane, it's at least 150, more like 500 or 1,000 feet above ground. There is a problem because when you shoot from that height, you have a lot of mist, and even when it's bright sunny, you have mist, and you have to take care of that. And that's one of the things.
Atmospheric haze and whatnot.
Haze, that's right. Yeah, it's haze, and you have to take care of that. And that's one of the things I developed. I may show you an example.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Let me see.
It's also an issue with drones, I've noticed, and it's especially hazier times.
It is, but a bit less because you fly from a lower altitude. This photo is another chateau of Dordogne, and I was facing the sun, and so there's a lot of haze due to the sun, which is right in front of me, and so I had to work to process the photo, make the blacks become black, make the colors a bit nicer. And this is what it becomes once it's processed. And I had to learn how to process all my photos one by one to make the colors really strong and saturated.
Yeah, so it's exactly because it's both the contrast being adjusted, but also there's like blue being added because of the haze, so you have to adjust the colors. I'm guessing then you saw like a huge amount of especially with software like Lightroom or DxO Photolab, like how this is expanded. Like, how do you incorporate those into your work? Or
I use both. At first, I used mainly Lightroom because DxO is really slow, and now I use more DxO because it has some features such as noise removal, which is a bit better than Lightroom. But there is one thing that's important: is that when you see a photo like this one, well, you know that when you're looking in the distant part of the scene, it is more hazy, and the eye is used to that. You know, the foreground is much nicer, it's crisp, and far away it's a bit hazy, but that doesn't matter when you look at it. But then when you make a 3D model, you have to wander it around, and all the parts of the photo must be equally sharp, crisp, and bright. So I had to process the photos so that the foreground and the background have the same sort of a color richness and crispness and sharpness. Yeah. So it took some time for me to develop that at that time. It was long ago.
Yeah, it still is difficult.
It is, yeah.
One thing I also saw not too long ago is there's a research team working on doing this for underwater photos. Something
Yeah.
called see-through, I believe, and it's a way of processing the raw images so that you can get rid of not just the atmospheric haze, but like the distortions of color that happen as a result of water. And they also now do photogrammetry with those images, and so we're desperately trying to see if we can do a DLC there. But yeah,
that was one of the things I'd love to do, is to do underwater photogrammetry. I guess I'll never do it, but it's really something I'd love to do.
yeah, same. Perhaps now with more robotic drones, underwater ones, it'll be a bit simpler and a bit less dangerous. Let's just say.
Maybe, yeah. And then, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so with you mentioned that there wasn't really any training material for doing aerial photogrammetry the way that you were doing it. Like how, can you maybe talk a little bit about the process of how you learned, how you experimented, and what the state of it currently is?
Well, it was a strange thing, because I wanted to make videos. How do you say that? From still photos. So I fly around some chateau, and I take several photos and try and make a video time lapse, sort of a time lapse. And it's very difficult, because you have to go around and come back exactly at the same place. And when so I wasn't very successful in doing that. And when this software appeared, I just plugged all these photos into there and discovered, wow, it was great.
Right.
That's the way to go.
Right.
And it was the way to go. And now when you read tutorials, well, yes, people say just fly around, well, with your drone, or make lines, but flying around is, in my opinion, the best way to do it, because you get much more detail and less errors. And so that's how I started doing that. And now I'm still a scientist, so there are a lot of maths, because you want to make sure you have the right resolution on the ground with respect to how high you're flying, what camera you're using, and so on and so forth. And I might try and share one of my flight plans.
Sure.
Okay, there's a flight plan. That's the way I do it. I use the French mapping national service. And I decide what size of the area I want to fly around. It's not very clear. The green circle is the part I want to take pictures of. To do that, I must define the height and the distance. I want to shoot at 45 degrees, so my flight plan is the red circle. So that's the green part for this area, and then lower you have the green circle for the other part. There's a slight overlap, and then I ask the pilot to follow the red lines, and in the meanwhile I shoot inside the green circle. Sorry.
Do you find the fact that there isn't so much of an overlap between the two green circles, is that an issue, or do you just continue shooting as you're going from one orbit to the other?
I do go on shooting, but it's not very important.
I see.
In fact, I don't really shoot inside. That's the theoretical area. I know that my camera will take one picture which goes from the edge of the green circle to the yellow point inside. One picture covers all this area. And so I sort of expand a bit. I don't keep inside the green circle. Yeah. And so I know there will be overlap, because I take care not to stay inside the green circle. Well, that's a little trick.
Yeah. It's this stuff is equal parts science as it is art, and part of it is just because there's so many variables to deal with, and alignment, which is the how the images are compared to one another, and then the 3D model basically, or like the positions of the cameras are determined, is the most crucial step. And so that step is, I'm sure for a lot of our listeners who have tried photogrammetry, have kind of seen how difficult that might be. So the flight planning and pre-production is very, very important. So it's very nice to see how you
Oh,
think about these things.
and I have to deal with other things that you can't fly a plane or a helicopter anywhere. I mean, you have to take care of the aerial regulation. You have other planes. You have places where you're not allowed to fly. You have
Yeah.
altitudes where you're not allowed to fly. And so, okay, as a pilot, I know all about this, and it helps me a lot because, you can't fly over a nuclear plant, for example, or an airport.
Yeah.
Or you can fly over an airport, but you have to ask for the control permission to fly, and then they might say yes, they might say no. So there's all this part of using the airspace, which is another factor that I have to take into account.
One factor that also just came to mind that might be easier with planes than with drones is with things like clouds moving or things shifting, lighting shifting. With drones, it takes a long time, I think, to scan, especially larger areas, because it's not flying as high. It doesn't have as much capability there, and it takes longer to cover a big area. You have to always keep in mind the amount of time that you are going to shoot something over it, so that you don't have like moving shadows. Do you find that you have to deal with that as well from a plane?
Well, yes and no. I just manage to fly when there are no clouds.
There you
That's
go.
it.
Perhaps that's
That's it.
correlated with also flying itself. You would fly during good weather versus bad.
Well, I've got an instrument pilot license, so I know how to fly inside the clouds. But then, when you want to make photogrammetry, you really can't.
Right.
Clouds. When you're on the ground, you have a small cloud going across the sky. It doesn't really matter. When you shoot from above, clouds are like black patches, and it's really awful. I mean, you really can't fly when you have clouds. I did it a couple of times because I had no choice on the date. I mean, I had once to make an aerial photo when the tide was high on a special day, and so it was at that time and that day and no other day, and there were clouds, and it really doesn't look nice. I had to process each cloud individually in Lightroom to lighten it and avoid those black patches. It's really awful clouds. Don't fly when there are clouds.
Yeah, it's
least
funny. There's like very different schools of thought on this, and I think it's always depending on what the end result is supposed to be. Of course, for your work, your clients want the their locations to be perhaps in the best light possible, in the most realistic way.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what the deliverable is typically asking for?
Yeah, well, my experience is that even when you make when you shoot for photogrammetry, actually the shadows, even in the 3D models, are very important to give brightness to the scene. And some people, some of my clients, want the shooting to take place only when it's full overcast. So there are no shadows, and they can add a special light. They can add the sun at a special day,
Right.
or move it with the season. And every time I do this, I find it awful because, the whole scene is very dull. It's not nice to look at. I don't like doing that. So I always try to shoot when there is a bright sun.
Yeah.
And it's much nicer, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I agree in that respect. I just know with the visual effects industry, like with film and with games as well, when they're doing photogrammetry, they really do prefer that extremely evenly lit, so that you can have like a malleable 3D model so that they can light it themselves. But Puzzling Places is kind of funny because it's right in the middle. It is a game, but it prefers meshes that have real life lighting Especially if it's pretty. If it's not pretty, if it's very dull, then we do have to add our own lighting. And we've shown in these dev chats how the amount of work that takes. You have to be very creative with that. But thankfully, also with the French Chateaus, you captured them in like really beautiful lighting. So we didn't really need to make much adjustments there. Before we move on to the French Chateaus, what is one dream site that you would love to capture, but you haven't been able to do so?
There are two. There's another thing I want to show you is a video we made once when shooting in a special place. I had a colleague photographer, and he made a making of this scene, and I'll show that to you.
Sure.
One of the things I'd really like to shoot in photogrammetry is some sort of very deep valley. It's very challenging because I've done it once, and it was for a customer who wanted to look at the cliffs inside a valley, and it was really difficult, and I wasn't so happy about it. But then I was in a helicopter. There was the pilot. Right next to the pilot, there was somebody watching the blades so they don't hit the cliff. And it was really a challenge, but it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't as nice as I would liked.
Yeah.
And really, I'd like to make, let me see, have I got a picture of that? There you are.
Wow.
Les Gorges du Verdon. I'd love to make a Norwegian fjords, of course, but this is in France. It's a very deep valley, and it's really beautiful. I love this place. It's in the south, slightly east of France, and it's very renowned. It's beautiful. I'd love that.
That's beautiful. I mean, I can see why it's a very narrow valley, so you do need, if you're in there with a helicopter, you have to fly extremely carefully.
Yeah, and then you can't make the oblique toes as you wish, because if you're above, then you can't see the bottom of the valley. If you're inside, you can shoot upwards, downwards. It's very tricky, and I'd love to do that because it's a real technical challenge, and the result would be absolutely beautiful.
I think perhaps if you combine drones and planes together, so that drones can help with the small areas like this, and planes for the larger surrounding.
Could be, yeah. That's an idea. Yes, an idea. You can't do that in planes. It would be a helicopter, of course.
Yeah.
And talking about helicopters, let me see. So it was we were making photos of the submarine pen in Saint-Nazaire at that time. So here I'm talking with the pilot, and I'm explaining what to do. This is a pilot's map, and all those blue areas you see is places where you have to be careful at your altitude, where you're flying, to be careful with the control, and so on and so forth. So I'm discussing this with the pilot, asking him to fly here and there. And we're discussing, you see, where we are going to fly. And then this is the place I want to take pictures of. So the submarine pen is there in the middle. And the way I prepare, you can see on this aerial photo, the circles that we talked about in the past. And I'm explaining to the pilot how he should fly over this place and the circle. Next, equipment, because of course you see where the pilot is sitting on the helicopter. That's where I will sit, standing on the skid of the helicopter with the open door facing the nothing.
Halfway out, basically.
Halfway out, and it's really terrific to do that. So I'm sorry, the explanation are in French, but I'll translate. The first thing I do is put on a harness so I don't fall out of the plane. Off we go. I prepare my camera. I've got the helmet around my neck. I've got my Nikon. I prepare everything, and off we go. So that's the taking off.
Nice.
And we prepare to go to the place where I must do the shooting. There we are. And so we overfly the coast, find the place. Very nice coast, by the way.
This is where exactly?
It's in Saint-Nazaire, Nantes. You know where Nantes is? It's the how do you call that? It's the end of the river Loire.
Sure.
So you have this huge bridge here. You see in the background. I don't know if you can see my mouse. No.
Yeah, I can see your mouse.
Okay, so this bridge is a very, very long bridge, and it's quite famous because it crosses the estuary of the river Loire, and it's pretty long. And so you have the shipyard of Saint-Nazaire, which is quite famous, and there is a ship being built here. But that's not what I was interested in. So I just have my map right next to me, and I check the places, because you have, you fly over the place you want to shoot, and you have to make sure you're shooting the right thing. Yeah. So I have my aerial photo right next to me, and to make sure, and I talk to the pilot and I tell him, okay, you look at this place here. He's got the same map, and I start shooting. So there we are. So that's my special way of shooting. I know where my circles are. I know each circle where I should shoot, and have the green circle in my head and on my map. And off we go. We're still next to this bridge. Okay, it takes a certain time. That's the place I was up. I just want to show you right here on the left. Those are the submarine pens of the World War II.
Wow.
And it's a monument. It's a great thing. And okay, so we fly around this place. I shoot. By the way, this is the camera I use, and I use my favorite lens, which is a 7200 zoom lens. Of course, we're pretty high, so I can't use a wide-angle lens like the ones that are used on drones. It won't do. I need the resolution from far away, so it's a tele lens, of course. And that's it. It's over. We come back home, land, and that's it.
That's great.
So that's what a mission looks like. So this one was quite special because of this film that was made by my colleague, but it gives you an idea of what a real mission looks like.
Yeah. Is there a reason why a helicopter was, why you picked a helicopter here instead of flying a plane? Was it not possible?
It was possible. The most expensive thing when you are flying is not the shooting itself. It's the going from one point to another.
Sure.
So this airport was exactly in Saint-Nazaire, and it was 5-minute flight away from the place we were to shoot. And so that was the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you another example when we talk about the chateaus. We've got other stories about those. Sure. And other examples.
Well, let's dive into it. I think people have waited long enough for that. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yep, fine.
Fantastic. So welcome to the French Chateaus DLC pack. This is all 6 puzzles next to each other. The scale is of the puzzles are variable, but I'll explain that in a second. So we'll start first with Jumliak.
May I make a comment?
Please.
It's awful. I mean, they're not that close. They're very far away, actually. So having them lined up like that is really terrible.
Okay, we'll keep them out of view so that you won't see it. Also, like I said, the scales are not relative to each other, so we'll try to keep them individualized. So I'll also give a little bit of context about how we pick these sites. So Philippe, you've captured so many places, and not just chateaus, but entire towns and villages, cities. In fact, we did the Biarritz puzzles with you also that are included in every single copy of Puzzling Places. So, there's many things we could have picked from, but we wanted to go with these sites that not only are a combination of like beautiful architecture, but also with nature. So we found that many of these sites have these beautiful gardens, these like gorgeous geometrically
Yeah.
shaped
Yep.
gardens,
Yeah.
manicured, perfectly manicured ferns and hedges. And then even sometimes they have these mazes as well.
Yep.
Like I
That's
found
true.
this so charming. So you don't find this everywhere. And so we found it to be very distinct of of France, at least these chateaux. So that's kind of was the theme that we were going for, these like old majestic chateaux that now are they're touristic sites where people can go and experience what life of these nobles were like back in the day. So yeah, I'd love to hear any stories that come to mind when you're looking at Gimliac. This is, like you said, in Dordogne when you were capturing.
Yes, it's in Dordogne, which has another name, which is Périgord. Some people know better Périgord than Dordogne. In fact, I was living there, and I was commissioned by the department to make a virtual tour of 25 chateaux in Dordogne. So this is one of them. And it was really great fun to make all those chateaux.
This is the context, just for people to know where in France we are. Here's Europe, France, and we're in the kind of southwest. Is this area known for anything in particular? Any type of cheese or wine?
There are many things in particular. First of all, it's called the Département of the 1,000 Chateaux. Ooh. It's incredible. You really have chateaux all over the place. It's really amazing. Secondly, there is the wine from Bergerac, which is sort of close to Bordeaux. It's okay. And Montbazillac. Montbazillac is a sweet wine, which is very famous. Sweet white wine. And last thing, which is very popular in Dordogne, is the truffles. Of course,
yes.
Yeah. In the Périgord, you have all these places, Sarlat, where you grow truffles. So it's and breeding ducks, of course.
Wow. Ducks for like cuisine or for other
things? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
I was thinking about duck racing for some reason.
No. None of that.
Typically. Okay. So that is Gimliac. Next up, we fly to Biron. Biron is also in Dordogne, I believe.
Yes, it is. It's quite opposite. So it's Gimliac was in the absolute north of the Département of Dordogne, and Biron is the southern limit. If you go further south, you exit Dordogne and go into Lot-et-Garonne.
This one we loved just because of the shape of the site itself. It had this beautiful circular element, and we're like, this is like perfect to just put by itself. It's like this framed composition that it would be nice to puzzle together. And as you're puzzling, you really do follow the road as like as a guide. When you're creating a jigsaw puzzle, you always try to start with the edges, and here at least the edge is quite defined, so it's like a very
and the entrance, you might see the entrance. It's left. You got this little staircase.
Sure. Here, let's go back. Here.
Yeah. You go up these stairs, and then you wind, and you have this open door, and that's the entrance. I don't know if you can manage to make people go through there, but that's the real entrance. And this chateau is quite interesting, apart from its shape and everything. You have concerts in this yard, and inside you have every year you have many exhibitions of modern art. It's very very interesting and very nice.
I love this area over here.
Yeah,
beautiful. I'm noticing that there's all these vines on this building, and I bet you're in the right time of year. The whole thing is lush with green vines.
Yeah, that was shot a long time ago. I can't remember what season it was.
I think I can also notice some of the color work that was done here with some of the dehazing to sharpen the shadows a bit, and it looks great. It's a really nice contrast between like the lit areas and the dark areas, which also for us for puzzling, that's very good to have strong directional lighting so that you know which puzzle pieces are supposed to go on which side of the connected puzzle.
Actually, you can see in the shadows that there is a sort of white bluish color.
Sure.
And probably it was winter, and it was maybe still a bit frozen. I don't know, but
I mean,
it's typical of what you get in cold days of these. The shadows are blue and tend to be a bit frosted.
Yeah, this looks like, now that you mention it, this looks very frosted, like almost snow-like. I mean, this must be either in the morning or in the night or in the afternoon, based on where the sun is pointed from. Just looking at the shadows.
Yeah, I can't remember. It looks at the morning. It seems to be the morning. I think the chateau faces south.
Mm-hmm. Moving on, we have Bourdet. Fly out to here. So this one is actually quite a different chateau because it's very ingrained within the town or the city that that is in. Is it just? Do you know any like the story behind it, or it must have started as a fortress or a chateau, and it kind of grew out from there into the town? That's
usually what happens.
Right.
I've visited all these chateaux, and I can't remember each time. There are lots of nice explanation. There's also a nice garden, if I recall.
Let's take a look. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can also just tell how fortified these places are. I mean, granted that this is the entrance and it has these two turrets on top.
I think the building we have in front of us was much later than the tower, which is the oldest part of the chateau.
Right.
It happened very often. You have something from the sorry about
10th
that.
century.
Medieval times, and then it was rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt again until nowadays.
Of course. Yeah, these places aren't just built once, they're built multiple times as things happen.
And you have a nice river next to it too.
This beautiful river with a nice bridge as well. We really wanted to keep this bridge because it has this element that's quite unique. So
I must say, the river, I had a lot of work because, of course, in photogrammetry, it's impossible. So I had to mend the river and flatten it and make it nice and smooth, and then paste the colors of the river onto it, and the waterfall too. So I had a lot of work working on this. The chateau itself was easy, but the river was really a challenge.
It was also a challenge for us. We had to do some more work as well to flatten it further and to help clean up the texture a little bit. So it's, again, different for different reasons. This is for puzzling, and so for puzzling you have different constraints. So it's always a balance of trying to keep things realistic, but also make a fun puzzle.
Yeah.
I'm guessing these are vines, right? Like for grapes, or maybe not.
Probably.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. And a little bit of the surrounding town. There's a nice little church here.
It's a beautiful church.
Yeah. It's actually quite large now that I look at it from lower down. It's just like
it isn't that large.
Well,
it isn't that large. No.
That's nice. Cool. I mean, honestly, I'm sure everyone that's looking at this and watching this dev chat is getting more and more excited to play these puzzles. So I think giving this context also is incredibly helpful for players to know what they're playing and kind of have a better sense of accomplishment afterwards. So the last two that remain, and the reason I separated them like this is because these are both 1,000 piece puzzles. And what does 1,000 pieces mean? I'm just going to select a few. Here's a single puzzle. I'm going to move it out of place. So that's one puzzle. Here's another. In terms of the garden, here's another piece. So it's they're quite expansive, and I think for some of these sites that have all this detail, that have all this beautiful intricate aspects to them, it's nice to be able to play them in such high piece counts, because as the puzzle pieces grow, also does the end result. So when you finish this 1,000 piece puzzle, it's like significantly larger than playing a puzzle at 50 pieces or 100 pieces. So this site is truly beautiful and majestic.
I've got a story about this chateau. You notice the roof is still in Dordogne, where everything is tiled, but these are slates, and it's quite unique. But there is another thing I want to mention. If you go back to the village, you see all those green sheets on the roof.
Yes,
and
like here's
it was really a piece of bad luck, because the day before I flew, there was a hailstorm, and it was really just on this village.
Wow.
And it was such a hailstorm that many of the roofs were broken, the tiles were broken, and they had to cover them with those green walls.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I figured there was some construction happening, but it's good to know the context that
it was really a terrible hailstorm. It will with hail the size of eggs. Really awful.
Oh yeah, I hope were able to fix and recover, because these red tiled roofs are beautiful, and from the looks of them, quite old. Like especially with this one, you can just tell it's just built over many years. Oh, actually, look at this part here. It's like it's blended into the surrounding entirely. It looks like a little gardening shack.
Yeah, little shed. Yep, that's right.
Another, of course, beautiful garden. Like, I don't know where. Do
Absolutely.
You know what's the story with the gardens? I mean, was there some tradition that was set a long time ago, and it just became a thing that these chateaus did, or like, because I don't see them very many other places.
I don't know the exact story of this chateau, but it was a way of the people owning the chateau to show how rich they were.
I see.
So it's how can you say that? It's sort of a way to show off.
Yeah, it's modern day. It's called a flex.
Okay.
In English, at least. Yeah, it's a way of showing off. But I mean, it of course it takes so much time and resources also to upkeep. So it I guess shows that you have the ability to do that instead of just letting something grow.
There's one thing funny about this chateau, and because people say, well, why do you use photogrammetry to make 3D models? You can just use the blueprint and then put the walls in a synthetic way. And in fact, if you look at the back of the wall, which is behind on the other side, it's not flat. This one, yeah. If you look at it from above, in fact, it's not flat. There's a slight angle.
Oh yeah, here let's.
There you are.
Isometrically, and you can really
tell. If you just use a blueprint, you'll miss that. And that's what I like when you do photogrammetry, is that you always discover small details that will never appear either in a blueprint or a description or whatever. This wall isn't flat.
Plus, you wouldn't have all this, different coloration and the discoloration of the walls. Like you can tell the life that it's lived essentially just by looking.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
photogrammetry is quite amazing at just capturing the real state of somewhere. It's not an idealized state. It's quite real. Even here.
Now, there's one thing I'd like to mention about these 5 chateaux in Dordogne. Dordogne is like 100 kilometers in diameter. In fact, I took off at, let's say, 10 o'clock and shot 12 of them in 3 hours' time. That's something you can't do with a drone.
No, not at all.
and that's a great advantage of flying, because moving from one place to other, it's like 10 minutes. So it's very easy, and then you can. It is a bit expensive in terms of price per hour of flight.
Right.
But then you can do so many things in 1 hour. I mean, shooting this chateau, it lasted what, 5 minutes maybe? Because you fly at 100 knots, maybe you slow down a bit to make the pictures. So let's say 80 knots.
Sure.
80 knots is very fast.
Yeah.
So you make 3 circles around. That's plenty of photos. And it takes 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. And that's so easy and so efficient that's why I really like, I mean, we make photogrammetry with drones also, but it's very efficient when you have many things to do to fly from one place to another.
Yeah, it seems like the math is a little different in terms of pricing. Like with drones, it's the price isn't the price of operation is not really much of a concern. It's more about the resources of like how many batteries do you have, how much time do you have, what can you do, and perhaps you can also try to expand it where you have multiple drones capturing at the same time to account for the slowness or the the resource aspect. But for flying, you're worried about fuel, you're worried about pilot costs, you're worrying, of course, about the plane costs, and there's more going on. But you can get more out of it, especially when it comes to scale and size. So
that's right. Yeah,
that's quite interesting. Also, with when you have blueprints, you when you have photogrammetry, you capture beautiful little details like this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
little tractor.
Yeah,
that's nice.
It is.
Okay, and now finally for the, I'd say like the big one. The real big one is Chambord. So this chateau is probably the most known out of all of them.
Yes, of course. Of course it is.
It's by far the most famous chateau. And when people look up French chateaus, I think this is probably the first result that comes up because it's just absolutely majestic, both in the building and the architecture itself, but also its surrounding gardens, which we really wanted to keep. The gardens here also continue out much further, but we have to find a fine balance between the amount of puzzle pieces that are the building themselves, because there's such beautiful details. Like this spire here in the middle is gorgeous. Like it has this beautiful spiral that goes up, and we wanted to make sure those are all puzzle pieces. Like here's again, as a 1,000-piece puzzle, these are all individual puzzle pieces.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah. And then we also wanted to have some garden pieces because this is gorgeous, like it's on beautiful colors, beautiful shapes. Also the lighting that you captured it in, this either dawn or dusk lighting with the long shadows has this beautiful element. So overall, I think this is going to be a really top puzzle for people to play.
So I've got a few stories about this one.
Please.
In fact, I wasn't... first of all, my plane came from the other side of France because I didn't find any plane to fly. So it was 2 or 3 flight hours away from the place where so it landed on a small airport, and I wasn't, I had an assignment not for the Chateau of Chambord, but for a small town which is called Blois, which has also a nice chateau with a spiraling staircase. And it was winter, and my client said, I don't care what season it is, I need it immediately. So it was something like January or February, it's really awful to do photos. And so it's not dusk, it's midday. It's midday, sorry.
Wow.
And I was flying next to this chateau. I said, I can't miss. I mean, it was something I really wanted to do for a long time. And there is 2 other things. They were repairing the roof. It's been going on for years. And that was the first season where the roof was cleared of scaffolding and so on. Wow. So it was brand new. And another thing which is brand new is the garden.
Yes.
If you look at the trees, it's on the other side.
Yeah,
because it's obvious they've just been planted.
Sure.
And they've renewed the garden very recently. Well, at that date, when was it? 2019 probably. And the trees are very young. You can hardly see them. You see only the shadows.
Yeah, exactly.
They're so thin that I couldn't capture them. And they have all these beautiful gardens again. And so it's winter, It's
Yeah.
not. It's not dusk. It's midday winter.
It makes sense. I mean, wintertime in Europe, especially like Northern Europe or Central Europe, winter sun never really rises past, I don't know, 40 degrees or something in the sun or in the sky. So you always have these very long shadows, and it creates
That's
very
right.
beautiful lighting conditions. So
Yeah, and actually, you're right. Winter light is very nice.
yeah.
And there is another thing that was difficult about this chateau is that, of course, it's government property, and it's so famous. You're not allowed to overfly it
Wow.
unless it's like the Mont Saint Michel. The lowest you can get is 3,000 feet.
Wow.
That's very high. That's very high. So I had my longest telephoto lens to capture all these details.
Wow.
And I asked the pilot to be as low as possible. And he said, I won't get below 3,000 feet
Yeah.
because if I get caught, that's over with my license.
Wow.
So we were very far away. And I tried to capture all these details inside the chimneys and
Even in
and
here.
it was really very tricky not to miss anything and to really capture the whole thing. And the light was really not very strong, so speed was low. Well,
Yeah.
all the difficulties were added to make this thing difficult, but really, I love it. It's so interesting to.
I mean, it truly is. It's. I mean, you must have had to do multiple, perhaps, loops around because you do have
Yeah.
such nooks and crannies that you have to focus on capturing, and you can't just do it all in one go.
No, that's right.
Is that
Yeah,
how you have to do it? I mean, look at this area.
Yeah.
Look at this little spiral staircase.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, it mirrors that central spire that we saw
yeah.
over here. Yeah, I love also the this black and white detail that they have. They also coincidentally are very good for photogrammetry if you ever need to lay down control points. If you like have to manually align by hand.
Well, yes, except it's very difficult to get the coordinates.
Yeah.
So you you can't put control points there at all. You have to use the garden or the staircase, or I don't know.
No, yeah, I guess I meant more virtual control points rather than like true ground control points with
Not ground.
GPS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So yeah, I think that's the French Chateaus puzzle pack, which I'm really happy about. I think it's turned into one. It's going to be a fan favorite for sure. If you're a player that liked the Mont Saint Michel, or if you're a player that also like Biarritz. I know Biarritz was difficult, but very rewarding by the end of it. Biarritz. This one it's quite different. It doesn't have as many red roof tiles like lots of little homes. It's one large chateau with some gardens and typically also a little bit of a town around it. So I think it's one of the goals that we have with Puzzling Places is to just try to show people places around the world that they may not have seen, and perhaps people have seen Chambord or even Mont Saint Michel in photographs, but looking at it as a 3D model, and not just looking at it but puzzling it, really opens your eyes as to like the life that exists in these places. And so I think that's quite unique to photogrammetry. So we're really happy when we find new places that are interesting to make puzzles with.
Yeah, and it's really fantastic for us to be able to showcase our models with puzzling places. It's a fantastic. I love playing with these puzzles. I discover when I make the puzzles, all the little in the Mont Saint Michel, all the little winding streets, that I learn what this place looks like. Although I've been there several times, you still discover new things, because where does this small street fit into the whole puzzle? And it's really interesting.
Yeah, there's always a funny effect when you puzzle somewhere that you either know or are going to, because you get to like experience it from a completely different perspective. And then when you
Absolutely,
visit
yeah.
it, you're like, oh, I know that building. I've puzzled that building, you know, and you try to like tell the person I've puzzled that, and they don't know what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
I had that with Mont Saint Michel. But yeah, it's thank you, Philippe, for sharing your
Thank
stories
you.
and your expertise. I think it's been as fascinating for me as it will be for our audience to listen to, and I truly hope everyone enjoys the French Chateaus DLC, because it's clearly a labor of love from both our teams.
Thank you. And really, we appreciate having our models puzzled this way.
That's great. And yeah, thank you all for listening. Actually, Philippe, if people would like to learn more about Gerfo, what are there links that you would like them to refer to them, like whether it's your website or their 3D models that you yourselves have posted on Sketchfab and the Dordogne virtual tour? I can also link those in the description for people.
Yeah, the website gerfo.com has many models. Some of those we talked about, but many others. We've got factories, we've got insects, we've got plenty of things. I would also recommend the virtual tour of the Dordogne département, which contains like 25 models, all located on the map, on a 3D map. It's really an interesting visit to do, and I'll give you more links.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Philippe, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next time.
Goodbye. Thank you. Bye.